I'm sitting here knowing that I, in my youth group, is now the guy who is my pastor. So that's kind of a fun thing to know that, hey, you were in youth group. We played trash ball together, and now he's my pastor. Welcome to another episode of the Youth Leader's Brain, and we've got a great topic here, leadership development for youth, with a couple of guys that I'm really looking forward to hearing from in this area. So all-stars here on both sides. And see they're shaking their head, yes, agreeing with me. Let's start off with introductions, so go ahead first, Ryan.
My name is Ryan Cavan, student pastor of Liberty Baptist Church in Newport Beach. Been there for about 7 years.
7 years there in that spot. My name is Sam Brock from out here at Ironwood Camp, and I am the executive director of the camp, and then have done youth work quite a bit in my younger years. Not right now. And
Bernie Lund. I have been the youth pastor at Canyon Ridge Baptist Church in San Diego for officially now 11 years, and been at Canyon Ridge for 18.
Okay, so now let me take you guys all the way back. We haven't talked to anything about this. In fact, we wanted to. We keep I want to talk about it. But I'm curious for both of you guys. Were you saved as a kid? Did you grow up in church most of your life? Right. Okay. So you were in youth group. You guys were okay. You weren't in youth group. You were in youth group. When would you have had a inkling that okay, I could be a leader? Like, how old were you when that? I could be a leader of people, or
I guess I would say probably in 9th or 10th grade, I had the inkling that I could, like that thought that I could, but when I actually applied it was probably a lot different than when I actually thought that I could be a leader.
Okay.
It probably wasn't until later in college that I actually started taking serious leadership roles as far as it revolves around the church and ministry and Christ and everything. Obviously in sports and things like that, you assume different leadership roles, but in a serious, as far as my relationship with God and in the church and in different experiences like that, probably when I was in college, about 19, 20 is when I actually started taking the initiative there.
Okay. And for you, when was leadership like a possibility?
The funny thing is probably the same as Ryan in college, and really it was because of hard-headedness. Looking back, even some of our sessions last night, I realized, God was talking to me through people. I should be in ministry. I should potentially be in leadership. I just wasn't listening. It wasn't until college that really I realized, okay, maybe I should do this. I mean, my dad said you should be a Bible teacher or something. I said, well, I'm 50 or 60,
Okay, so I have almost the exact same thing. I'm in 9th, 10th grade. I was desperately quiet. I did not want to talk to anybody. My dad would be in high school, he'd be like, someday maybe Sam, you'll preach in front of a church. No, I don't, you ought to take speech class because you're so, no. I didn't want to do any of those things. I enjoyed maybe, hanging out with some people, but leadership was not an aspiration whatsoever. And it would have been that 1920, something like that, where you're like, I could possibly, do that. But I think all along in my high school years, people were working on me to be a leader, but to no
avail.
Right. Yeah. There was no fruit when I was in youth group. And so now I look back and there's a few things that I'm like, wow, they did that, or they pushed me to do that, or those sort of things, and I didn't like it at all, but actually it was really good for me. So I think when we're talking about this, I think if you're working on, our audience is working on trying to train leadership, that for a youth pastor, it's kind of, I have no idea if this is going to work. I have no idea where this person's going to go with it. I think some people are, they're going to be great leaders and just fizzle to nothing. And then there's other people that I'm like, and then all of a sudden they just keep on.
Yeah, it's funny how when you try to instill this into a teenager, and you guys have both been in youth ministry longer than I have, and you try to instill it, and you're like, they don't get it. And even I've had a few come back to me and like, I remember when you did that, or I remember when you said this. Like, I wish I would have gotten that, or I would have just applied that when I was 16, 17. But sometimes it just takes a little bit for that application to kick in. But that labor that you're investing in them, it's not in vain, and it'll catch.
My dad has a little statement. I'm going to butcher it, I think, but he has something that says something like, "Potential is really nothing at all." And the basic idea there is that sure, a person can have all this leadership potential, but if they don't do something with it, it's as if they had nothing.
Yep.
That it's not even there. And so sometimes I find in this leadership development that I'm not working always with the stars of say my group, but I'm working with some of just the steadies, some of the people with some character, and they're not the big man on campus kind of guy. So how big is your youth group when we're going through this? I mean, how many kids will you?
Yeah, it'd be average around 70.
Okay,
70 teens in
so
our youth
good
group.
size youth group. What about for you?
I'd say 20 to 30.
Okay. And then I worked with a youth group most of the time that was in that 8 to 12. Every now and then went to 20 or 30, but didn't happen very much. And I do think that these guys different kind of where they come from with the number of young people may change some of what they would do. So I think you may hear us all talk about the same idea, but with a different size group, I think leadership has a different dynamic within that group. So how did you guys make your list? How did you come to like what came to mind? What does your list kind of look like in general?
Mine's extremely practical, I would say. Just practical things that you can, or things that you can give them that they can just apply now, that they can work on. They can take, whether it's in different serving areas, and I don't want to jump ahead of myself, but in different areas that they can jump in even right now and assume a leadership role in however old they are, whether it's 12 or 18 in the youth group. So mine's pretty practical.
So mine's kind of when I was making this list, it was a harder list than most of the other ones that I've made, because normally I make a list of like 20 things and I'm marking them off, but I was surprised how many things were not really structured. Like I didn't have a leadership like by the time I got done with this, I'm like, I don't think I had a leadership program. I had some ideas and concepts, but I really didn't have that set up.
I have a tendency to be super philosophical, and so I'm really glad for the practical side and the mixed side. I'm also lazy, so I often go to Google and copy paste. But hopefully, what I did today was take a little bit of the Bible and copy paste. And so hopefully, we have some benefit.
Good. So here we go. We've got at least 5 things. We may each jump in on each other's, or it might spark a thought here. And I think this is something that every youth pastor should do, is try to develop leadership within their their group, even if they're just going to be a leader in their home. So here we go on our stuff. Number 1, not everyone will lead. For me, this is I almost want to say the opposite of it. Everyone will lead. But here's what I'm saying. I do believe that everybody, if we're going to define leadership as service or a servant or something like that, that's what they do. Everybody will lead like that. But I also need to know that if I'm going to have a leader of peers, that there will be just a few that lead, and I don't have to make everybody a leader. And so I don't want this one to be misunderstood. I do understand that everybody serves. When it comes to our family, they should be leaders within their family, and everybody should have that. But I do believe that there's a natural, or not natural, but there is a person that rises to that spot who leads the rest of the group. And I need to not always try to take every single person and say they're going to be that.
Yeah.
So that's, for me, my first one.
Yeah, it has a lot to do with personalities too, right? Sometimes that's just not someone's personality. And I think if you think about leading in that aspect, I think that's important, because you're right. I mean, everyone serves, everyone has those opportunities of leading by example and things. But as far as that vocal leader or that whatever that comes up,
or their personality or their gifting or the circumstance that they find themselves in, they're not just going to always rise to the top. So
for sure,
that's mine. Bernie, what do you got? What's your first one?
My first one, I put menial service, and I kind of referenced Paul and John Mark in this, and my thoughts on the matter were everybody wants to serve publicly, that wants that kind of glory, and music, platform ministries, and kind of the testing ground is taking the trash out, taking the recycling, sweeping the floor. Like I asked for volunteers in youth class at the end, like, hey, I need a couple sweepers. It's like crickets out there. And so if you can,
I already know how to do that. Sorry.
yeah, exactly. And I think of Paul and John Mark. One of the reason, this is probably a negative example, the reason John Mark failed is because he was their minister. So he washed their clothes, he arranged their travel, he prepared their meals, he fixed up their wounds, he did all the little stuff, and the first time he couldn't hack it.
Yeah.
And so I think menial service is really key, and we do this a lot in our youth group at our church. Get everyone involved, but they start small. Like we don't immediately put them like in front of people. They start off kind of small.
I like that because you are, for the rest of your life, it will not matter what your, say, position is.
That's right.
There will still be an aspect of menial service that is not, it's not anything special. You're just doing it.
And I'm not degrading the service by calling it menial. I guess I'm just really emphasizing that it's not public, something that you would be really praised for.
Okay, so yeah, something that is known because you're up in front, that sort of thing. That's good.
Good deal.
What do you got?
My first one here is let them lead in youth group. I think this is something that is extremely important that we've tried to establish in our youth group the past year, is giving them more opportunities to lead amongst their peers and in their peer groups. So some things that we've added is we have all of our students lead the worship now in youth group. No adult is on the stage leading worship, whether it's playing an instrument, singing, is all student-led. And it's funny, it can be awkward at times, it can be uncomfortable, and sometimes in that transition of a song, they don't know what to say, and they're just kind of standing there, and everyone's staring at them, and we've had a few of those awkward moments, but I think in the long run, it's going to be better for those opportunities for them to be leaders. After every time I preach on a Wednesday night, we then break up into small groups. And with some of the younger kids, the junior hires, we have some of our seniors and juniors that will come down and they'll mentor the junior hires. They'll be that small group leader on a Wednesday night. And giving them opportunities to lead in that area, I think is just really healthy and really beneficial for them, just to give them actionable things they can do right now. And they can know, hey, we can serve with what we're doing. Often we tell them to be leaders, but we don't do a great job of giving them opportunities. So I think giving them opportunities to serve in youth group amongst their peers is really, really healthy.
This, and you might talk about this in a different way, but letting them to actually lead your peers, I think, is a whole different kind of leadership than, say, okay, you're going to go work in junior church or you're going to work with the kindergartners and do that. Like in that spot, you're expected because of your age. I'm older, I'm bigger,
Yep.
I'm expected to lead. But where a person really needs to step up is within your peer group. I mean, that's where the leadership has to happen. Do you have people kick back on that? How do you pick it? How do you transition? Or I mean,
I think it really happens organically.
Okay.
You kind of lay it out and give opportunities, and those kids that are really interested will come to you and talk about that. And there's been a few times where we've had some kids that just, just like in a church that, you don't want them representing your ministry on a platform, and you let them know, hey, there are some things that you need to work on, and you have to be honest. And we've had a few kids that have come back and said, okay, I really want to lead, and here's what here's what I'm going to do to get to that point. We've had some kids that hear that and they don't, they're just like, oh, okay, fine. Like, I'm not going to do it then. And in that instance, you probably don't want them being a leader.
Right.
And
right.
so,
No desire to grow.
yeah, absolutely. So I think that's kind of how we've handled it.
So it's almost like you have to make an easy way for them to step out and an easy way to step in, because
Yes.
I do find that the teens might move around quite a bit as to what they want to try and do. So
Yeah.
you don't want to say, this is our song leader for the next 2 years. That's a bummer if you can't bring somebody else in on a week or
Yep.
try other folks.
And really, we give them more of the leadership is happening with the juniors and seniors, sometimes the sophomores. So those older kids, they really have a year or two to lead in that. We're not putting a seventh grader to come up to lead our song leading. But giving those older kids in the youth group an opportunity, I think
That's
is
cool.
really healthy.
My number 2, a broad statement that there might be several things underneath, but the idea that every young person has strengths and weaknesses, and to help them in their leadership is to figure out what those strengths are and then develop those, and then figure out what those weaknesses are, and make sure that those don't grow to the point that it becomes their Achilles heel, the kind of the thing that knocks them out. So it's a two-pronged approach, I think, to whatever your leadership development is. Kind of the working with your weaknesses so that those don't take you out. But what we sometimes forget with young people is that they have strengths. And I think as teens, they are just beginning to, like, you're just getting the inkling of, this person's kind of good at this, and they might be good at that, and they might have to try it because anytime you're doing something for the first time, you're not good at it, but you have an idea that they could become good at it. And so, who's going to be a preacher? Who's going to be a teacher? Who's going to be good at hospitality and giving and some of the spiritual gifts that are there? Those are their strengths, and so you've got to develop some type of way of figuring out, like, what those are. What are their strengths? What are their weaknesses? Did you guys do anything for figuring that out, or?
I think the key word that
You
comes to
just observe?
strengths and weaknesses is balance.
Okay.
For that, I was actually having a discussion on the way up here this morning. Trying to develop those strengths, but then also improve on your weaknesses. Finding that out, and acknowledging what your strengths and weaknesses are, and then balancing how to handle that, how to improve my weaknesses, or improve my strengths, and then work on some things that I struggle with a little bit. I think is really important.
We really try to test our kids out, like, in the church. One thing that we don't want in our youth group is a youth group culture all by itself and a church culture separate. And so they're very linked. And our teens, honestly, they serve in the life of the church. And so some of those opportunities maybe to discover strengths and weaknesses might be seen on all church work days. Happened this last one where a young 21-year-old kid, we said, hey, here's some of the youth group, go take them and do this. And he did a great job. And just things that happen in the life of the church, opportunities of service, getting them involved there, it kind of comes to light a little bit more.
Good. Bernie, what else you got?
I put my second one, informal discipleship, and this would probably be a positive example, unlike Paul and John Mark at the beginning. And I say that because my tendency is to be very formal. Hey, we have a once a week meeting, we sit down, we go over these passages of scripture or this book. And informal discipleship, honestly, is just saying, hey, come with me as I run this errand, and you just talk and you just interact. And life has teachable moments along the way, or they might ask questions. It's almost like a little bit of crossover into parenting. Your discipleship with your kids is very informal because they just need to be around you. That's why it says in Deuteronomy, when you sit down, when you rise up, when you walk in the way, all those things. And I see that for Paul and Timothy. Paul took him to be his minister, and he's probably the shining example of Paul's legacy in ministry. And Timothy just went everywhere Paul went, learned everything that Paul went, informal and formal discipleship.
Yeah. This is the one that for me, I'm like, yep, that's kind of the way my leadership development went. I didn't have that little leadership program. And part of it was because our group was that 10, 12, 15, as we were getting bigger. So that meant I just had a right-hand man. I mean, there's just, hey, you want to help me go do this? And the guy's like, oh, sure. And then he kind of just found himself being in this spot that we would do something together. I mean, I feel sorry for a few of the folks that I'm closest to because they're constantly getting drug into, hey, you want to do this? Hey, let's try this out, and I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
But that's the way you teach leadership in some ways. So.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's good. Okay, what do you got?
Good. My next one here is connect them with other leaders in your church. Don't allow it, and don't be said that the only leader that they interact with is you.
Amen. For sure.
I know for me, there are some great men and ladies in our ministry who I want them to learn from, who I want them to grow from, that I want them to spend time with. We kind of have this tendency as youth leaders to, I know I did it when I first came in. Every other youth leader I wanted to bring in was, whether a young guy, someone that I connected with really well. But I found that sometimes bringing in that older youth leader, they connect with those kids in a more personal way than any of my so-called buddies that I could bring in or anything.
Sure.
And so connect them with other leaders in the ministry and allow them to see maybe how another leader operates, maybe someone who has a completely different personality than you, maybe someone who's a little bit more introverted or who has a different gift or talent than you, and allow them to learn from them, I think is extremely healthy.
Did you have to prep the other leaders that you're wanting to I mean, you have other leaders, there might be other youth leaders, but I'm assuming we're also talking about,
Yeah.
go help teach Sunday school, or you're going to kind of partner with this person and create that.
Yeah, I think, obviously you kind of choose and you kind of say, oh, well, this person will be, a really great leader to learn how to teach a Sunday school class, or even like Bernie was saying, on a church work day or something like that. And you kind of hand pick and then go to that person and say, hey, I'm going to stick, Joey with you. And I think it'll be really good for you to spend some time with them and just invest in them
Yeah,
today.
yeah.
And I don't think I've ever had pushback from that. They're excited about being able to invest in that teenager during that day.
Yeah. If anybody needs a ride or something like that, like if you're needing to move people in your youth group, I find that that's one of the best ways to get other people involved. I'm so busy with putting that moment together that if I can get somebody else to go pick them up or somebody else to go
Yep.
drop them off, that conversation, that time that's spent right there is one of those best ways to connect the two of them.
And I'll make a confession. Sometimes that I don't connect the way I should with every kid in my youth group. I mean, in a theoretical sense, some of them really annoy me really bad. Theoretical.
Yeah,
Very
of
theoretical.
course. Not
And-
for real.
And so, not for real. No, we all
I've
know
never
that.
experienced that.
70 kids.
Yeah, with
that's
all the
amazing.
70 kids.
Amazing.
That was a lie.
No, I get you. But my pastor and I have talked about it. It's funny how sometimes a kid in our youth group, like he just loves them, connects with them, and can pull them alongside. I'm like, you go, pastor. Like,
Yeah.
you go, kid. Go do it. Because I look at them and I'm like, and it's just awesome to have a church and leaders in the church, like you
Yeah.
say. Different people can connect with them and help. The end goal is for them all to walk with Christ.
And I don't think that's this our dear, but don't get jealous of that either.
Yeah, yeah.
And if you see another youth leader or someone else, they go to another person for counsel or advice or something like that, we shouldn't be jealous of that. Like, we are the only ones that
Sure.
can sit down. Me and my wife are the only ones that can sit down with this team. Let them talk to other leaders that we trust to invest in them is really healthy.
Well, I actually think you have a pretty decent limit to how many people you can actually individually
Yeah. Oh,
work
yeah.
with. So obviously in the group you could have a big crowd out there.
Yeah.
But when it comes to the relationship where you're now doing that informal discipleship, that's a much smaller team.
You only have so much emotion, and you're supposed to go home with a quarter tank of energy.
Right. You did learn from last
I
night.
did.
Look at him. He's quoting another episode. Here we go. Mine next one is they've talked about it a little bit, but create spots of leadership. And again, this is create spots of service. A servant leader sort of thing is what we're looking for. But this is where I'm just constantly looking for so many different ways to do this. And so anything that's on the church calendar, you're looking for a way, how can we jump in and serve and how can we be a part of that, like in a small way, to make something that the church is doing successful. And this takes work on our part to figure out where those things can be, recruit those people, and try to do it. But again, I'm going to go back to the previous episode. If I'm trying to take these young people from a point of always being served to becoming a servant, I've got to look for these routinely. Every month there needs to be some new opportunity to serve or be a part of. Now, it doesn't mean that we have to fill every spot and be able to wipe out every single thing. I just want to be able to share something, see if they're interested in it, see if they can jump in, see if I can put them in that spot. So I remember early on we decided we were going to do a puppet program for the junior church. We were going to do the first 5 minutes and we were going to get 3 or 4 kids to join us in it. And I presented it. This is why it would be great ministry. Here's how you're going to do it. My helper, Wayne, and myself, we were going to help them do it. And how many are interested? I mean, I built it up big. And how many want to do puppets? Crickets. And I'm like, okay, well, Wayne and I we're gonna do it. And over the years, I've done puppets a long time, but I've only had a few people kind of just jump in a little bit here and there. But it's always available, like jump in and do this. So again, at potlucks, there should be areas that our kids are serving. At every church event, there should be spots. Within your own service, there should be things that they're doing. It's like one of my biggest jobs is creating places where they can serve. And what makes it hardest is that they're no good at it. You know what I mean? They're rookies. They're
Don't
not
expect perfection.
right. They have not done this before. They're not always trustworthy, but that's where they learn. That's where they get the knowledge to do that. So the fact that you're letting them lead in youth group is what gets them prepped and ready to actually lead in other church areas. And although you might not be able to, the bar is a little higher in the regular church.
Yep.
In your smaller group, you can learn and grow. It's a safe place to get their service to a point where it could be used by others. So
We call some of those on-ramp ministries.
Okay, good.
Ministries where someone can just step in really easy and get involved. Doesn't require a huge amount of training, but it gets them involved quickly in using some kind of gift and service and
Yeah.
opportunity. So.
good.
Can we go out of order? Because I want to piggyback off.
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
Is that
jump
cool?
in,
Okay,
jump
I'm
in.
sorry,
Yep,
Brendan.
yep.
Okay.
No,
Because
good.
my next one is get them involved in church, not just youth group. Get them
Nice,
involved in
nice.
church, not just youth group. And I just wanted to add on to that because I think this is something valuable, and there's so many different things that they can be involved in. You know, like Bernie said, and there are some kids that may be really gifted musically that you're like, you know, I want them on the worship team. I want them being involved in that. But there are so many other things, whether it's helping run the computer, or running a camera for live stream, or helping being an usher, or whatever it is, you know, helping people to their seat. There's so many little things that maybe to us seem like little tasks, but to them is a big deal that they can take advantage of, and they can take something actual they can do and they can serve right now is really good. It's not only good for them, it's good for the church family to see that there are some teenagers that are serious about serving and are serious about their relationship with Jesus, and that can be exciting for the whole church, not just for them. So I think if you're going to develop a leader, get them involved in the main service and in other church events.
And I think it's great for the pastor, you know, if you have to communicate some of what your kids are doing in various spots, for him to be able to even recognize some of their service. They're real, I don't know, maybe tender, or they're kind of just brand new at this, so the encouragement, the criticism is kind of magnified. And so we've got to be careful that that our words carry a lot of weight, you know, some of the older ones. So that encouragement when, man, they're doing this, that's great. But I actually think that a group of teens can become a vital part
sure.
of a church's just what it's doing. So in the sound room, like you're saying, in all the different places. But I think it takes an adult with kind of connections to kind of pave the way to get them involved. You know, to slowly.
Someone on staff.
Yeah,
maybe.
yeah. Somebody else, yeah. Somebody called a youth leader has to jump into that.
Yeah.
So yeah, good.
Awesome.
I like it.
All right. Love of reading. This is really a general leadership principle, I think. I mean, everyone who's been around leadership at all really hears about it a lot. But 2 Timothy chapter 4, the Apostle Paul talks about the cloak that he left at Troas with Carpus, and he says, when thou comest, bring with thee and the books. And so, and then earlier in another Timothy, he says, you know, give attention to reading. And so, sure, there might be an emphasis on the Bible, but I don't know anyone who would disagree with me. As you get older, nobody that has a great or a long-term leadership impact is not a reader. Like everybody's just saying, hey, you have to read. And the reason is ultimately you have to learn from other people's mistakes. You have to learn from other people's gathered wisdom over the years rather than just your own. Like everything can't be an example of what happened to me in my youth group or in my church. And really the gateway to that is reading. And so it's sad in our culture we're so media driven, and God gave us the Bible, a book. And so I think even more than just the Word of God, you have to somehow find a way to cultivate, encourage, help teens to like books.
Yeah. And that's because as a leader, you're serving others, so therefore you have to learn in order to help them. So it's like
Sure.
you're constantly being pressed to stay just a little bit ahead, you know, of what you're doing. Now, in a youth group, you are many times the curriculum that you're doing. If you're now done it 7 years and you've done it 10,
11,
11, 12. You're starting to do some lessons again. You know, you have a brand new generation there. But I remember my first time that I went through a generation of youth. I was scared of a few topics. I was like, oh, I'm not ready for that one, you know. So it took that second time where I'm like, okay, I'm going to learn this and get ready to be a better youth leader. That's good.
Quick example on that. I won't take a lot of time, but obviously, you know, things of a sexual nature or sexual purity are a little sensitive. And I came from a family that we didn't talk about that at all, like nothing. And it wasn't until honestly this year my pastor said, you need to have a series on this. And we did a 10-week series on sexual purity, sexual integrity. So needed. We recorded it, passed it out. tons of great feedback, and we're gonna have to do it every year. Just the needs of our culture and of our kids, and just piggybacking on it. Like you can't stay away from the hard topics.
Well, yeah, and the topics are just, I mean, there's a lot out there that we need to keep up with, because we're helping parents, we're helping young people deal biblically with whatever the devil is throwing at us. And we know that nothing's new, but that doesn't, just because it's not new doesn't mean it's not new to me.
Right.
I've not lived all through this. So yeah, I know it's not new, and I know that God has an answer for it, but I've got to really stay in that learning mode. So, for you, is reading a big part of your life?
It is. I love it. I didn't read a lot of good books growing up. I mostly was fiction. We talked a little about Louis L'Amour. Huge fiction reader, but I've had to learn to develop a love of informational type reading, and you can change it around. Everything doesn't have to be a dry, horrible, boring book. But if you are searching for answers, you're searching for help, you're searching for wisdom, you're asking God to use different voices through the authors in your life, then it becomes more fun.
Yeah. Here's my next one. Delegate responsibility and task. And let me give you the differences here, because in Clinton's book on developing leaders, or I can't remember, it's kind of a dry academic book, but there's a little section in there that deals with how to work with young leaders. And he divides two different things that you want to do with these guys. You want to delegate to them responsibility and task. A task is a one-time event, like can you go do this, and they go do that and they're done. A responsibility is kind of a series of tasks, or something that is ongoing, that never stops. That one of the ways you develop a leader is by starting with some of these tasks, but then also graduating to something that is more of a responsibility. So a task may be, could you come with me and set up the room? And a responsibility is, could you make sure the room is set up every time before we're there? It's the next level of leadership, not just doing what I ask you to do, but actually being the guy who takes on that thing and says, yeah, I'll get it done for you. And if you're going to develop a leader, he's got to be able to have responsibility, act on it, deal with all the things that are going on in his life, the fact that he's got vacation coming up now, who's going to do that job. And they are two different things. If all you do is give away a list of things to do each week, that means you're doing all the thinking. You're doing all of that work. You've got to give out a responsibility. And when I read that and I saw it, I'm like, oh, yeah, it's almost like if all I give away is task, I've developed junior high leaders. And if I give away responsibility, now I've given away leadership that's actually useful in the church, in a real world situation. So
we've had church interns where that just became like readily apparent, and we realized, you know what? We can give this person any task to do. Like, they'll go do it. Sometimes not so good, but hopefully good. But they seemed incapable of the greater picture. Like, you had to think through it all, give them every tool, give them every task, give them the timeline, give them everything that they needed to accomplish it. Otherwise, I mean, it was all on you.
Yeah. So actually, to give a person responsibility, they now have to know how to handle a calendar. They have to understand priority. They've got to be able to communicate. Like, I'm not going to be able to make it. How do I get my sub, or who do I get to say, how does that work? So it really pushes you to take the next level of, okay, you're not just a good servant, you're actually now have that responsibility. So I find when you have that intern or that person who's not doing very well there, what do I need to teach them to get them ready to take that and ready to do it? So I'm amazed how many of them think that they can remember everything if I've told it to them. I'm like, no, you're going to need to write that down. No, I can remember it. No, I just told you 6 things, and last time you didn't remember it. And so it really is, it's like me trying to figure out how to delegate responsibility. I'm really good at tasks, easy. But how do I delegate that?
Yeah, that's a really good one. We at our church we actually have teen interns that do all of our maintenance and janitorial work at the church. So we hire the sophomores to seniors that do all that work, and it's funny to see them by the time after 2-3 years of working there picking this up a little bit, because you're constantly being like, all right, go clean this bathroom, take these tools, and then eventually now it's like, okay, they know what they need to do. They're taking their stuff. All right, this needs to get done every Wednesday before service or every Sunday before evening service or whatever it is. So that's a really good point.
One of the things we forget is that responsibility, the dessert of responsibility, is improving it. Mm-hmm. So what we need to do is sit down with them every now and then and say, how would we make this better? What do you think? I mean, you know the thing. So if they have the responsibility of setting up the classroom or to set up the room, to ask them, what should we add to here to make this classroom better? Sure. They're gonna be like, we've got these chairs here. Like you, cool. You have a budget, you have different things you want to do, but getting them involved in we can improve it. Man, they love that when they're like, yeah. This is better. They've really kind of taken
they had part
that on.
It better.
Yeah.
That's
awesome.
cool.
That's cool. Okay, what do you got? What's your
Back
number?
to me, or
we know. We're going to switch it all up. Who knows which way we go?
Right, good. I have encourage accountability.
Ooh, good one.
And I think leaders, as a leader, as a pastor, some of our responsibility is to keep others accountable in different areas. And I think it's cool, especially after when you come to a camp and we talk about that all the time, finding an accountability partner and someone that'll help keep you accountable in a decision you made or something that you're working on, and allowing not only a person that's a paid leader or a youth leader, but allowing one of their peers to be an accountability partner and giving them that opportunity to keep others accountable, I think is really valuable in leadership. Some of the things that we've done is some Bible reading plans that and you can go on YouVersion and you can have Bible reading plans and create them together, and they've kept each other accountable. And I saw you missed a day here, are you going to make that up? Or man, I missed this day, and allowing that accountability to sometimes it just happens organically, but encouraging it. You can't force that accountability, but you can encourage it as a youth leader. And then also, we've had some teens that have come up and struggling with addictions to pornography and things like that, and allowing other peers as well to keep them accountable. And hey, how you doing this week? Did you have a slip up? How's everything going? And I think that allows them to further their leadership development.
Mm-hmm. That's good. I like that. The encouraging of accountability is some of the scariest part of that is that question comes back around. So so we've got to in our own lives that has to be something that we're where we're supposed to be. So accountability is anonymity is your enemy of accountability.
I was just going to say, exactly that. I mean, basically, vulnerability has to be there has to be vulnerability to have true accountability.
Yeah. And I'm surprised how anonymity can happen in a crowd because there's so many that you don't talk to any one-on-one, and it can happen with an individual when it's private, when there's nobody around. So.
And a lot of that happens when you get into that small group, and whether you're a smaller youth group or you allow for breakout times and stuff like that. A lot of that can happen, and it's really good.
Okay, what do you got?
Kind of piggybacking off of my last one, love of reading, love of God's Word. Same idea, but really emphasizing the Bible. And we talk about it all the time in youth group. All of us do. Read your Bible, read your Bible, read your Bible. And sometimes it becomes a little bit of lip service. And we have to drill down a little bit somehow, maybe talk about it, maybe, of course, in preaching, but there has to be some reality. Because when they get into college, when they get to be an adult, all of a sudden we're like, why are you not growing? Why are you not serving? Like, why is your marriage messed up? And it's like they never learned way back when to have some kind of habit of realistic and real sincere Bible love and practice. And so can't just be like check the box, forget about it forever, because 10 years down the road, if they're going to be a Christian, an ongoing, living for Christ, active servant, maybe even in ministry, then they got to have a real relationship with God. It can't be fake.
Yeah. Here, I think if we will show that God's Word has the principles for everyday living, it feels like, and sometimes, and I'm just speaking to my experience, that kids think of the Bible as really good for the big problems that are in life and the obvious sin of black and white, but they don't think of God's Word as helpful with, okay, what job am I going to pick and what car am I going to buy and what should my career be? No, there's principles in God's Word that deal with every one of those life questions that they have, and it behooves us to bring God's Word to a point where it's helpful for their life.
I think kind of a little bit of what you're trying to say is that there has to be a mix. Like there cannot be, we all know there can't be a secular and a sacred, but like a kid will plan out and say, I'm going to go to this college, I'm going to do this with my life, and they map out their life. Oh yeah, and I love God and I'll read His Word, but it's like, wait a second, like, was God involved in any of this plan? Like, did you ask your pastor, your youth pastor, what do your parents think about this? And at what level does the Word of God really impact every day that you live?
Yeah,
Things you watch,
it's like God and His Word is a piece of pie in my life.
Yes.
Instead of saying Christ is my life, and going to that. So it's good. My last one, and really we've kind of beat this one already up, but the church culture of patience with new leaders, and I do think that especially as you're getting those teens that are older, when they start transitioning out of just the service spots within your youth group, the service spots that are kind of small, you have to have a church culture that welcomes them into the various parts of the church where they are contributing nearly like it's like a one-for-one. You know what I mean? They are a real help, but they're still brand new to it. And I do believe that's a church culture that you really work with to try to do that. So I want, at the end of the day, when my teen graduates from high school, I want the fact that they're not coming to youth group to not be this massive, wow, church has just totally changed for me. I want them to be actually connected into a number of things that now when they leave youth group, I think it'll be a season of life that they will miss, and they'll know that but they're ready for that next season of life, and they're already tied in. That church, the culture of that church has to be that's what they want.
Yeah.
So, and I know we've talked about that in several spots. So, what do you got?
Last one here. If you want to develop leaders, you need to be the right leader.
Why'd you have to bring conviction in?
I know, this is something
I thought we were talking to everybody else.
Right? Right? Yeah, we need to be the right leaders. If we want to train and we want them to take on this responsibility, then a lot of even these things that Bernie's put over here, we need to take those things seriously for ourselves as well. And we need to hold ourselves accountable. If we want them to be held accountable, we want them to be responsible, we want them to get tasks done, we need to do that same. We need to handle that ourselves as well. And just be the right example of what it means to be a leader. And that's my number one there.
What do you got?
I'm going to add on to that and maybe beat this horse a little more. I put meditation, not of course Eastern type meditation, but really allowing the principles of God and His Word to just kind of simmer down into your life. It has to be in quiet. Jesus said, follow me and I will make you fishers of men. And the key, honestly, to living the Christian life, the key to developing youth leaders, the key to leadership in the Christian world is really just being close to Jesus. And it's been something that I've had to discover over years and months. God brings thoughts to your head if you're quiet, if you're thinking, if you're allowing your thoughts to just be guided by God and His Word. Then He says, you know what, this is different in your life, or you should do this differently, or why are you doing this? And it's not always, I don't know, it's kind of a process of time. I don't know how to describe it other than, Paul says in 1 Timothy, he says, meditate upon these things, give thyself wholly to them, that thy profiting may appear to all. Yeah. In other words, everyone will recognize the person that walks with Jesus and that allows God to influence their thoughts and their life. And I didn't know how else to say it other than meditation.
That's good. That's good. I like it. I don't know if any of you guys have any honorable mentions. For me, there's one thought here. I probably had a crisis moment in my youth ministry about 2.5 years in. We were running about 20 kids, and I felt like at the end, like when I was talking to my young people, there were maybe 2, maybe 3 that wanted to do right. Like the rest were just, they were there.
Good kids,
but they just weren't. And I was like, okay, what? Wow, what should this look like? They didn't create any waves, but they also really, when push come to shove, they weren't committed. And I remember going on a fishing trip with my dad and saying, okay, how should my youth group look? I mean, how should I work with these kids? And he really challenged me to look at a session or a message or something like that, and to make sure that you're recognizing that first and foremost, everybody has to choose who's going to be the authority in my life. Am I going to run my life, or is God going to run my life? And teens are trying to figure that out. They're trying to, does what my mom and dad make sense, or do what I think makes sense? And so they're just going through all of that stuff. I need to not be afraid of that. And I need to teach principles, but I need to realize they've got to make a decision about, okay, I'm going to do what God says, or I'm going to do what I say. Now, what happens, and what I had to realize, is that they're going both directions several times in their youth career.
Yes.
You know what I mean? For like 3 or 4 weeks, they're making lousy decisions. And then all of a sudden, 2 weeks, they're doing really good. And then they might hold on to that for a month or two, and then all of a sudden, something deep sixes them, and they make some bad choices. And if you're close to your youth group, you just realize the struggle that's going on choosing to live for God or to live for self. And I need to be careful that I don't pigeonhole these kids in either one of those spots. Like, this kid always does right. This kid never does right. Well, the reality is they're kind of ping pong.
Back and
Flesh
forth.
and spirit.
Yeah,
battling.
it's the
It's
battle.
a battle, it's a war,
Right.
yeah.
It's almost when you see a 4-year-old trying to decide to lie. You know, you can see everything going on in their mind. It's so real in that teen life that I'm trying to figure out which way to go. And I just need to encourage a life that is for God, and one that will continue to lead and not be selfish. So don't pigeonhole them would be
That's good.
a thought. I don't know if you
really good.
guys.
Yeah, I think the other one I had was make that personal connection. If you're going to develop a leader, that one-on-one time of connection, whether that's just grabbing a meal, whether it's you're going through a discipleship book, or you're training them through a leadership book. Make that connection one-on-one, where you can give them practical things they can take, but also philosophical things that they can take and that they can work on. I think will be really helpful for them as they're growing. Get that one-on-one connection.
This is an odd one. Teaching girls to be a leader. How does that? Do you do anything different? Do you put different people with them? Is there any difference?
Yeah, I mean, I think we have girls that are leading in tons of different areas in the church as well, and there's so many opportunities. We think that sometimes girls can't be leaders because they're not pastors or preachers, but they can
They're
lead
great
in
leaders.
so many areas.
Right.
We often the person who leads our music will switch off between a guy and a girl on a Wednesday night, and she's extremely gifted, and we give her opportunities as well because she loves to be involved in the worship and being and singing there. So I think definitely giving them opportunities, and obviously you're not going to have that one-on-one time with you and a girl, but allowing your wife or another youth leader to be able to sit down and train in kind of the same way.
Yeah, I think not much difference other than maybe in like a preaching situation.
Yeah.
Obviously following the Word of God, but if you see leadership potential, develop it, give them opportunities, everything still applies. And we see that in our youth group.
And often, sometimes, most of the time, I know from my youth group, the girls are the ones that are willing to lead, right?
They are.
Sometimes the guys are like, nah, that's not the cool thing to do. Girls are often very willing to lead in different areas.
Yeah, I think it's one of the things that we have to work at the balance, not letting that happen too much, like really pushing on a guy, kind of raise the bar for some of your guys. But I think that when that is co-ed, I think that's really cool. I know that I personally lead with the help of my wife. I mean, if it weren't for her, I'm a mess. And
No,
so
for sure, man.
I think that guys, even in their teen years, the support and the help of the girls that are in there is a big part of that as well. So I really like that co-ed flavor where they're going
for sure.
at.